but really because I don't want to lose anyone before we end today's class session, I want to really point you guys again to the announcements. There are new assignments that are included over the weekend. So I want to show you guys what they are and where to find them. Um, Look, I see you, Jamisha. Hi, Jamisha. Look, um, I think I
Hey,
have
Miss
everything
Cole.
working now. All right. So again, with the revisions, you guys know about that. Something new that I have posted that I want to show you guys is a new discussion board forum. So yes, you guys are working on your revisions. Again, that's due tomorrow/Friday. You know, you have that grace. Um, but since we're closing out our first essay assignment, I wanted to allow time for students to kind of reflect on that process. What did you learn or walk away with out of this particular process? So I set up a discussion board. Let me show you guys first how to find it and then kind of walk you through the instructions. So if you guys have any questions, we can kind of bang them out now. So with the discussion board, we have completed one discussion board already this semester. That was the welcome videos. If you did not submit that, then you may have little experience with kind of accessing or finding the discussion board. So let me take you guys through this just once more. I added this assignment to the calendar, but again, if you guys are being proactive and you're just going right in to complete the assignment, you would go to assessments, you would click on discussions, and here you will scroll to the bottom and you'll see our next assignment. So again, this is somewhat of a reflection process. So it's comparable to what you guys have been doing with journals, but it's a little bit different in that uh, you know, the writing that I'm hoping you guys produce in this discussion forum is more formal. So we talked the other day about formal versus informal. Um, we talked about the mental shift that needs to take place in terms of recognizing your audience, who you are addressing, what they are expecting from that assignment. So this gives us a little bit more practice with that formal writing. Um, but you guys see that the goal is for you to think about the learning that has taken place with the essay, with our first essay. So students have two options. You are turning in a paragraph and you are either selecting one of the outline sentences, and let me show you guys here. So a question to consider is, what did you think about your initial score on the assignment? So that again is just exploring expectations, right? What did you expect to earn on that essay? How did you feel about the grade you received? Do you feel it was fair? Did you understand how you received it? So consider that question, as well as what were some challenges, if any, that you faced in writing your essay. So we had a brief survey yesterday where I asked you guys what was the easiest part about writing your paper and what did you consider to be the most difficult. Um, this allows you to kind of come back and summarize any of the most difficult or challenges that you had in completing the essay. How did you use the feedback and notes to improve your essay? What were new skills? What were some new skills that you learned during the revision process? And lastly, what are some things you plan to do differently or better with your next essay assignment? So again, two ways to respond. A student can take a single question and choose to expound on that. So you can take the question, develop it into a paragraph. You have that option. Or students can take each question and apply an answer and build a paragraph. Um, but you guys do have some autonomy in how you approach the assignment. Main goal is at the end of it, you guys need to produce a paragraph that kind of looks back on, um, you know, our first essay assignment. And hopefully, you guys are approaching it or considering it differently, because I know what process we had in place already. The goal is with our new strategies, with the concepts that have been introduced in class, how do you think you did? You know, how um, do you feel that you have learned, you know, through the process of taking your paper through the steps? So take time when you guys get a chance. Get essay number 1, that revised version, in first. So if we're going to prioritize your revision first. But just know you guys have a discussion board forum to complete. This is due on Tuesday, so you have till next Tuesday, which is the 30th, to submit your responses here. To submit, you guys know I have taken us through this, but you would click on the topic here at the bottom. You guys can see that. And then you would click on start a new thread. So in clicking on this, it creates this dialog box for you guys to add and answer the question. So this is a required assignment. Just make sure you guys are getting that done before the due date of Tuesday next week, the 30th. So I'll reiterate that on the homework. So just to put all of that in perspective, I wanted to lay that out there for you. And kind of doubling back really quickly, I kind of quickly forgot about our message. The announcement that I sent you guys today, if you are seeking a tutor or seeking to make an appointment with myself or our embedded tutors, I included a link in the announcement. So I had some students email me, how do I get in touch with our tutors? How do I go on to Grades First and make an appointment? So I wanted to address that with you guys here. So I wonder if I click on this, will it take me outside of this page? Okay. And you guys can kind of see this pink and blue screen, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you'll see when you come to that link that I posted in our announcements, it gives you full student resources. So all of this information is important, but as you guys are looking specifically for how to sign up for tutoring service, right? How to get in touch with the academic support service. I want to show you the 2 areas we have for that. I don't see Grades First, but I'm sure I'm missing it. All right, sorry for scrolling so fast. Let me. Am I missing Grades First?
I think it's a bit further down.
Okay,
if
it's
you
a little bit
scroll
further
down a little
down.
bit,
Okay.
yeah. It should say tutoring, so
Oh, so
Testing
it's right.
Center,
Okay.
tutoring right there.
Yes. Okay. So here's tutoring. Oh, here it is. So the link is under tutoring. You can either go to Grades First. This is where you go to schedule an appointment. So again, I encourage you all to seek out our embedded tutors, and that's Yvonne Womack and Valor Papa. Sorry if I said your last name wrong, Valor. Did I say that right, Papa?
No worries, it's Popa, but that's
Oprah.
okay.
Okay,
Yes.
correct me. Look, that's okay. So you guys would make that appointment here. Now, the academic support also has a way that you can walk in. So, you know, maybe you didn't make an appointment. Maybe you had just maybe an hour before you perhaps, let's say, have to head to work or get the paper in. Look, hopefully we're not waiting that late. But you can walk in. They have virtual meeting hours that you know, should put you in contact with the tutor, and the hours are here. You would click on the virtual meeting room. And I think the way that this works is there's a tutor who is kind of manning this room as you go there. Hopefully someone will be available for you guys to get that help. So
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So 2 options. You either can make the appointment through Grades First, really seek out our embedded tutors, or you can go right into the tutoring virtual meeting room. So it's a Zoom space. You guys would click here during the hours, of course, in order to see someone. So for those of you, let me see if I see my students here who really specifically asked about the tutor. It's really for everyone. I think we all could benefit on getting an extra set of eyes on our essays. So you guys know that you have these resources available to you, okay? I wanted you all to see that. The link for this is not only in the course syllabus, it's also on our announcement. So you guys know that. All right. So did you all have any questions about the revised essay? I'll pause for a second. Did we have any questions about even the discussion board assignment that I just talked about? Are we clear? But can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I am going to assume we're good, but if not, you guys know, definitely contact me. Something else I wanted to uh, remind you guys of, my office hours. So yes, we have the fabulous resource of the Academic Support Center, but I'm also a resource as well outside of the class. So if you guys wanted to come see me during my office hours or by appointment, you can reach out to me in that way as well. So I had a couple of students who made appointments with me for tomorrow morning to kind of sit down and get clarification on their paper. So you guys can you reach out to me with that and we can set up a time. All right. I'm going to kind of move on from that. The homework, before I get to the homework, we had exercise yesterday where you guys did the run-ons and fragments. I got some of the assignments in, but if you guys have not turned in the homework from yesterday with the run-on and fragments, that handout that allowed us to practice what we learned.
We have to turn that in? I didn't know.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, yeah, I told students you guys could either write your answers out on a separate sheet of paper. If you completed on the actual handout, so let's say you printed out the handout attachment, you can take a picture of it and send it to me that way.
Okay, I can take wrote it on paper. I could take a picture of it.
Yep, absolutely. And you guys can email that to me just so you guys can get your credit there. But I wanted to pick up on that discussion because the handout was somewhat of a practice exercise. So now that I feel like we may have a better understanding on what a fragment sentence is and what a run-on sentence is and our steps or strategies in correcting them, I wanted to provide an additional opportunity today for us to practice that. So let me share my screen with you guys. And let's kind of quickly review and dive into a practice exercise that, really calls on us to pay closer attention to our proofreading, how we are proofreading our papers, checking for correctness, right? So with our revision, with our revised essay due tomorrow/Friday, I wanted us to kind of walk through a proofreading exercise that the expectation for you guys as students, in some cases as your instructor, I can point out errors in your writing. I can point out instances where you may need to correct or improve your writing, but it's even more important that you guys proofread, take ownership of that step and proofreading your own papers, taking the concepts we've discussed in class and using that knowledge to identify errors in your own papers and correct them proactively, right? So before I catch them in the grading process. So this paragraph is a short paragraph that is riddled with run-on and fragment sentences. So it's specifically is dealing with this topic of run-on and fragments. I want you guys, whether you are, jotting it down, perhaps typing it in Google Docs, I want us to make an attempt to proofread the paragraph first, and then correct the errors. And before I turn you guys loose on that, I want us to quickly review our knowledge and understanding of fragment sentences. So really quickly, if you guys were asked to define a fragment sentence, what is our our understanding of the fragment sentence? How would we
It's
define
two
it?
incomplete sentences, or it's incomplete.
Okay, I
Like
heard
it doesn't have like a subject or like a period or stuff like that.
okay. So I hear that an incomplete sentence. Do we all agree with that? Are we in agreement with that? My peeps, do we agree that a fragment is an incomplete statement, incomplete sentence?
Yep.
Okay, good. Somewhere in our notes, we need to have a clear definition on what a fragment is. It is an incomplete sentence. You can also refer to it as an incomplete thought. You can also refer to it as a dependent clause. However you refer to it, I would like you guys to have somewhere in your notes a connection to the idea that a fragment sentence lacks information. It will always require more information. So whether that information is a subject, which is our main noun of the sentence, whether that information is our verb or predicate, that the action or state of being taking place in the sentence, or whether it is just lacking information to help it express a complete thought. A fragment is incomplete and it will always require additional information. So as you proofread and as you are identifying what type of sentence it is, I want us to get used to making the immediate connection. Fragment, information, right? So what do we do with run-ons? If you guys were asked to define run-on sentences, how would we define that?
It's punctuation errors.
Okay, so I hear that. So as far as punctuation error, but does anybody have perhaps a
It's two, like it's a complete sentence, and then I wrote it down, but I'm downstairs.
look, I know what you want to say, right? Anybody want to help Jamisha out? Anybody wanted to add to that? Sometimes I wish I could see you guys' face. Look, so I could. Anytime I ask my son something and he just sits there, it's like I just stare. Like, okay, so we're gonna stare. Let's stare down.
I think Robert had something to say in the
Oh,
chat.
Robert, my bad. Two different topics. Somewhat two different topics, but perhaps an easy way of looking at a run-on sentence, right? Is it's two or more complete ideas. So where the fragment is incomplete idea, the run-on is two or more complete ideas that are fused together without proper punctuation. So you were right, Jamisha, when you pointed out it lacks proper punctuation. But the way we will normally identify those errors, especially in run-on sentences, is that sometimes you know it because you have to take a breath in the middle of a sentence. Sometimes we can identify just visually a very long sentence, right? But it will be up to us to determine where the separation between one complete idea is and the next, because a lot of times that will inform where the punctuation goes. So to define a run-on sentence, two or more complete ideas fused together, we can use that term. We can say running together without proper punctuation. So if my tag phrase for fragments are incomplete, lacking information, then run-ons could be two or more without punctuation. So two or more complete ideas, no punctuation or improper punctuation. All right. So with that quick review, let's take a few moments and I want you guys to proofread the paragraph and let's revise it. Let's rewrite the paragraph by making the necessary corrections, okay? So 2 steps: proofread, identify the errors, and then we rewrite to correct them. So I'm going to give us, it's about 12:50. I'm going to see where we are in about 15 minutes. I know that it may take longer, but I'll kind of check back in about 15 minutes on this. But let's see how well you guys do with identifying and correcting those errors.
Miss Cole.
Yes, ma'am. Look, hold on. Can you hear me?
Can I type mine up? Yes. Can I type mine up on the notes and send it to you?
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Yeah. You guys have options with how you complete this. You can either write it out by hand, take a picture, or you can type it either in your Google Docs. Even if you type it in the body of an email, I'm okay with that. Just kind of making sure you have your indentations. But yeah, that's perfectly okay.
So
Okay,
Miss
thank you.
Cole,
Yes, ma'am.
so with the what do you call it? The thing from yesterday. Oh, my hair. Ooh.
Don't worry.
I was trying to show you, like, I didn't write out the full sentences. I just wrote out how I corrected it.
Okay, let me try to look close at this. That's fine. Don't worry. It's really more so to give you credit, to operate as homework credit. So I'm not so much penalizing. You know what I mean? I just want to see you did it, you participated in it, so you'll get that credit. So I'm not looking at it so much for right or wrong. Now this I'm looking at for right or wrong. Did the student get XYZ right? And again, even that is just so you guys can kind of learn from what you got wrong. But you can just turn in what you have, take a picture of it, just so I can give you that participation or homework credit.
Okay.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, Yamna, how are you doing on the proofreading assignment? Are you okay?
Oh yeah, I'm okay. I'm not understanding because I'm joining. What are you doing?
It's right on the screen. You guys are rewriting the paragraph that well, first you're proofreading the paragraph and rewriting it, making the necessary corrections to the fragments and run-ons that you find.
Oh, which one?
It's
This one?
the paragraph that's on the screen.
Oh yeah, okay. Now we correct correction. What are you saying?
So you see the instructions right at the top where it says on a separate sheet of paper, rewrite the paragraph below by correcting each fragment and run-on sentence.
Okay.
So you're proofreading this paragraph, you are identifying the errors, and you are rewriting it, making the necessary corrections.
Okay. Okay. Give me time.
All right, we probably got about, what did you guys tell me? How are we doing with time? About, what did you guys think? I may check back in about 5 to 7 minutes. I'll see where
Yeah,
we
that 5 to 7, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
Let's see. A couple chat. All right.
Miss Cole,
Yes, ma'am.
I text you yesterday.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time, Jewel.
It's Tamisha.
Oh, sorry, Jamisha. Tamisha, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I text you privately.
Oh, I missed it. I see. Okay.
Hello.
Well, the good thing about that is if it continues doing that, I'm recording. So I will post my recording, even though I have really been having some issues lately. But yeah,
Okay.
definitely, I'll record and post the recording. So if you do get kicked out, if you do miss anything, if you continue to have those issues, you'll have that reference.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. You had a question, Yamna?
Yeah. I text you privately. Can you check?
To my do you mean my email or do you mean the chat?
No chat.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me go back. Sorry, you guys. Where was I? All right. Let me look at you. What are you wanting me to check for now, Yamna?
This paragraph. I am asking you check now. You check later.
What are we checking? What am I checking?
About this paragraph. I read
Oh
out.
yeah, we're about to talk about that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're about to talk about that now. With the paragraph that you guys just worked on, proofreading and then correcting. Look, what did you guys think about this? Was it? Did we find it difficult? Was it easy? What do you guys think?
It was difficult to me.
All right, I heard difficult.
I'm still doing it, but it is kind of difficult.
Okay. Did you need a little bit more time? Are we ready or
Have 5 more minutes.
okay, that's cool. I can wait about 5 more minutes, you guys. Let's take about 5 more minutes to finish up. And what I think I can do, well, I'll wait. I'll go ahead and let you guys finish and we'll talk about it. Right, so I see students are kind of coming. All right, so even though slightly maybe a tad bit before 5 minutes, I think it's probably right at 4, but I'm gonna go ahead and just move forward with this just a tad bit, so that perhaps maybe our discussion of it can help if a student is stuck on any particular part of it. So let's really go through this together. Again, the main goal with this assignment is to reinforce our learning of not only what a fragment is, or run-on, not only how to identify them, but then how to correct them after we identify them. So that's what I want to kind of walk through our discussion of this today. So you guys will help me out. I will tell you this. There are 6 errors in this paragraph. So 6 sentence errors are here. So we'll see how you guys fixed and changed them. And I know each student will be different, because in the case of correcting fragments, you guys have the option of removing words or adding words. So I'll take a sentence by sentence, and you guys can just share what you have on yours. But let's look at the first sentence. Maintaining a healthy diet can be difficult. Is this a correct and complete sentence? What do you guys think? And if you guys can tell me, like, even though we may hear someone say yes, like either chat in the box yes, put your hand up, but give me some kind of indication on what you guys think so I can get a clearer picture.
I thought the maintaining a healthy diet can be difficult was correct.
Okay, what do we all think? Do we agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. This opening sentence, let's see. Okay, I see that. Good. Okay, the opening sentence is complete and correct. Maintaining a healthy diet can be difficult. Healthy diet is our subject. It's all about the maintenance of that diet. So maintaining, as well as can be, is our verb phrase. So we have our complete statement that expresses a complete thought. What about this next statement? For some college students. Is this a complete and correct statement?
No.
Okay, so it's kind of clear here that this is a fragment. Number one characteristic is it begins with a conjunction. It starts with for. And if you guys remember anything about our discussions throughout this week, you can easily identify or set up a fragment sentence if we open with and, but, for, some cases because. They tend to, while, it tends to mark part of a thought. So when we start with for, we're already beginning with part of a thought. So not a complete thought, but only a fragment of a thought. So how do we correct this second sentence? What did you do?
So I think now that you said we can't have for, because I kept the for. I said for some college students there could be problems with being hungry in class, and then I added a comma, then I put or they may have to adopt a new eating schedule.
Okay, well, that's one way. Okay, so hold on, I'll go to that. Let me see what else. Okay, I see Robert says it needs a comma. He took the period out and put a comma in. Okay, so let's explore those two suggestions. So you mentioned, Robert, getting rid of the period. Yes. And I think you also mentioned adding a comma. I will say by removing that period and connecting that fragment statement to the independent clause, a complete sentence that came before it, you eliminated that error. But you don't necessarily need a comma to do so. So where it says maintaining a healthy diet can be difficult for some college students, that in itself is a complete and correct statement. You don't need to add a comma or punctuation. But let's look at that. So we explore this as a solution. Let's look at what you just stated quickly, Jamisha, where you said you opened up, you said for some college students, and then you added a comma here. Is that right?
For some college students, there can be problems with being hungry in class. Then I put comma, then I put or. They might have to adopt a new eating schedule.
Okay. That may have gotten rid of the fragment, but it could still set you up for other sentence errors in that, it, you know, where it began with the, for some college students, there can be, again, you wouldn't want to begin the sentence with for. So you could say some college students, you know, have problems being hungry in class, but you wouldn't want to begin your sentence with the conjunction for. So the best way to correct this, based on the handout and the ideas you guys have been studying, would be to connect this fragment to the independent clause that precedes it. So if you guys haven't had a chance to read that fragment and run on handout, sorry, that we discussed on Tuesday, it's under week 4. I think it was under week 3 module. Read that. That is required reading. Not only does it define the sentences, you know, what a fragment or run on is, it also gives us strategies on how to correct. So it is those strategies that I'm looking to see you guys employ today. So good with this. We connect the fragment to an independent clause. Let's look at this next sentence. What do you guys think is the statement here? First, there can be problems with being hungry in class. They may have to adapt to a new eating schedule. Is this a correct and complete sentence? What do we think?
So for me, that's the one that I had added to the other one.
Oh, I see. That's right. Yeah, you had combined them.
Run on.
Period and put a comma. No run. Okay, so you said no run on. Oh, I'm sorry. You're saying, Robert, that this is a run on. I think that's what you're saying. Okay, good. So do we agree that this second statement is a run on? Did you guys even see when I read it how I had to take a breath in between? I'll read it again. First, there can be problems with being hungry in class. They may have to adapt to a new eating schedule. So we saw the pause right here. The pause is here. And sometimes without being aware, that pause will indicate where the break is between the two complete thoughts. So this is a run on. And here we have the first complete idea. First, there can be problems with being hungry in class. If we were to add a period after this, this is a complete statement. Okay. We know run-ons are 2 or more complete ideas. Let's look at the other. They may have to adapt to a new eating schedule. That is also a independent clause, a complete statement. The problem is the 2 ideas are fused together without proper punctuation. So knowing what we know about run-ons, how do we fix this? We know run-ons equal proper punctuation. So how would we fix this particular error?
And this sentence starts at first, there can be problems with being hungry in class.
Mm-hmm.
I actually made that into 2 sentences. So I said, first, there could be problems with being hungry in class, period. Second, they may have to adapt to a new eating schedule.
Okay, I like that, Jewel. That's good. You guys know that with the run-ons, the problem is it needs proper punctuation. So one way you can correct that is in between the 2 complete ideas, you would want to insert punctuation. So one appropriate form of punctuation is a period. By making these 2 simple sentences, we've eliminated the run-on error. And it makes it a little bit easier to read. So let me try this again. First, there can be problems with being hungry in class, period. They may have to adapt to a new eating schedule. So, okay, we eliminated the run-on error. What's another way? I see I got a message. I heard Robert say, well, I didn't hear. I read Robert say, add a comma here. So let's add a comma here. And you guys tell me, by adding the comma between these 2 complete ideas, did we fix this problem?
But don't you have to have a conjunction?
That is the issue. If we add simply a comma in breaking up the two complete ideas, we have now added an additional error to our run-on. Now it's called a comma splice run-on sentence. And the reason is sometimes we're more comfortable using commas. I just think we're just more familiar with commas. But commas have a role to play. They link ideas in a sentence. But what they cannot do is link complete independent clauses. They can't link two complete sentences. Now, they can link ideas within a sentence when we add our conjunctions, but they don't operate in linking or connecting two independent clauses. So, Jamisha, you had it right where you said we can add comma along with a conjunction, because the conjunction is what actually does the job of linking the two ideas, not the comma. So, what conjunction works well here? First, there can be problems with being hungry in class. And we can say and they may have to adapt to a new eating schedule. Good. So that's one way we can fix this. Another way we can fix this is what, you guys? What do you remember? Semicolon. Look, I try not to get excited, but if we add a semicolon here, we've also corrected that run-on statement in that whereas a comma is not strong enough to connect two complete ideas, semicolon is created for that purpose solely. The semicolon works to connect two independent clauses, but the definition actually states two relevant independent clauses. So they have to be related to each other, okay? So where it says, first, there can be problems being hungry in class. They may have to adapt to a new eating schedule. We know that the they refers to students. So what's on the left side of the semicolon is related to or relevant to what's on the right side. So that's what we need to appropriately use our semicolon. So we see that there. All right, let's move on to the next sentence. Where it says, some students may think they can skip meals, so they try, period. I'll go ahead and read the next follow-up sentence to that. To fight their hunger. So what do we think about this first one? Some students may think they can skip meals, so they try. Is that a correct sentence?
No, because it's not saying what they're trying to do.
Yeah, it's an incomplete thought. It leaves us with a question mark in terms of, okay, they try what? So we know clearly it is lacking information, right? So we identified that as a fragment. We see that that fragment is followed up by another fragment where it says to fight their hunger. And in talking about this before, I had pointed out that a lot of times students will try to break up a sentence in some cases to meet a sentence quota. So what we can do based on what we know about fragments, what we can do, what we know about fragments is sometimes we have to connect or remove information. So let's see how these strategies will help us here. Some students may think they can skip meals, so they try. Well, that's incomplete. But what if we get rid of this period and we just connect the two fragments together, hoping that by putting a piece with another piece, we can create a whole. So let's see.
That's what I did.
Yeah. Some students may think they can skip meals. Oh, I see here. I'm going to add a comma between my conjunction so and the break in ideas here. So some students may think they can skip meals, comma, so they try to fight their hunger. Not my favorite sentence, but it is complete and correct. So I see that here. All right. So even though we were doing fragments where traditionally we would simply connect or remove information, we did have to also add the comma here so that that sentence was correct. All right, let's look at this next one. This is, some faculty may not permit food in the class, comma. They may even ask a student to leave if he or she brings food. What is the issue with this sentence?
Now that you actually just read it, it sounds like to me it doesn't have nothing wrong with it, but again, I did change that comma into an and.
Okay, I see you, Jewel. Okay, so I see Robert raise his hand. Yes, sir, Robert.
Oh, okay. Could you fix that last sentence by saying, all right, since we're using semicolons, I forgot all about the semicolon. Some students may think they can skip meals, semicolon, so they try to fight their hunger.
Well, the catch with the semicolon is it isn't necessarily used with your conjunctions. So one of the rules with the run-on is a period, comma, and conjunction, or a semicolon. So you could get rid of this so. We can get rid of, and we can get rid of so, and we can add a semicolon between the two, but we wouldn't need the semicolon and the conjunction so. If that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so we can do it that way as well, and that works. That's a good question. All right, so what you mentioned just a second ago, Jewel, for the sentence that we were referring to with the some faculty may not permit food in the class, comma, they may even ask a student to leave if he or she brings food. You said you corrected this by adding, did you say and?
Yeah, I took out the comma and added and. Okay. But I'm not sure what was, is that right now that you didn't read the sentence out loud.
All right, what do you guys think? If we keep the comma, but add the conjunction and, which makes that comma legal. Look, what do you guys think about this sentence? Did we correct it? Let me highlight it. Did we correct this statement?
Yeah, that looks better.
Some faculty may not permit food in the class, and they may even ask a student to leave if he or she brings food. That works. That eliminated the run-on error where we had just simply the comma. Because again, let me reiterate, if you guys have just the comma, then what you have is a run-on comma splice. Because again, the comma does not work. It's not in its job description to connect two complete ideas. So we can either do the comma and conjunction. We had and. We could also add a period. I don't know if any of you did that. You can make them two complete ideas. Or we can go back to what Robert just referenced. We can add a semicolon. So again, as writer, you guys have that creative control. You have autonomy over those stylistic choices. What do you want to add there? As long as you're getting rid of the error, I'm okay with it. So I'll leave that like that. Next sentence. The issue of adapting to and developing a new eating schedule can be tough. Students need to know this.
I rewrote this whole sentence.
Okay. Hold on, let me pull out my annotation mark.
I rewrote the whole sentence.
All right. So what did you do to this, and how did you remix this sentence, Jewel?
I said the issue of adapting and developing a new eating schedule can be tough. Therefore students need to know this.
Okay, let me see about, okay. So you stylistically, see how we were just talking about, sometimes you're reading it and maybe that language just doesn't jive with you, right? Maybe that's not how you would say it. So you guys can make those changes there. But the error you pointed out too. So you said,
mine too, Ms. Cole?
Yeah, hold on really quickly. But I hear you, Jamisha. Yeah, after I'm done, again, I'm just trying to figure out where to place. So you said therefore, I see, I remember. New eating schedule can be tough.
After tough, comma, and then therefore student needs to know this.
Okay. Now, I'm not mad at the use of therefore. The only thing is, if you guys remember from our handout, therefore is considered a transition word. So it's slightly different from a comma, from a conjunction. So our conjunctions, our fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, along with our subordinating conjunctions. Again, if this language is a little bit foreign to you, review your 8 basic parts of speech handout. But we learned in the handout on run-ons and fragments that when you're using those transition words, you use a semicolon to usher that in. Do you guys remember that from the sample the other day when we had the however sentence? Do you guys remember that from yesterday's discussion?
Yeah, I remember it now.
Okay. So therefore can work, but it doesn't work with that comma ushering it in. What would need to introduce it is semicolon, transition word, and then a comma. So you can still use therefore, but it would just require changes to your punctuation. All right, let's look at this another way. How did you correct this, Jamisha? What did you want to add?
Oh, I don't want to add anymore.
Oh, you changed your mind? Okay, that's okay. Let me identify it again. I think it's this one. Okay. Did anybody else have a way that you revised or corrected this statement?
I believe I put the issue of adapting to, comma, and developing a new eating schedule, comma, can be tough, period.
Okay.
Students need to know this.
Okay. Now for that element, let me go back. All right, I like that. So you're saying that, so again, you guys are making those stylistic choices. The catch with that is you didn't necessarily need the comma with and I know I'm going to sound confusing, Robert, because you're going to say, you just told me with a conjunction we would need a comma. That's only in the case of connecting complete ideas. So since this is just a compound sentence is really what it is, the issue of adapting to and developing a new eating schedule. So this is a compound subject. So you don't need the comma in that case. I know that's confusing. I wouldn't penalize you, but I did just want to make that clarification. What I like about
no, not to cut you off, but yeah, I was confused about putting that comma before the and because he was saying adapting to and developing a new eating schedule, new thing.
That's why I
can be tough.
Right. So you saw, so where you see the issue of adapting to, right? So that right there, if that was a complete statement, if that was a sentence that could stand alone, then you would need that comma and conjunction to connect it to the other half of developing a new eating schedule can be tough, you know, etc. But because this and is representing a compound subject, so instead of saying the subject in this sentence isn't just the issue of adapting, it's also developing a new eating schedule. So that and is referencing the subject. It's not connecting additional ideas. So if that's confusing, when we talk about sentence types, so you know, next week we're going to dive a little bit deeper into talking about what's a simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, compound, complex. All of that calls into play again this use of and. So we'll revisit. You know, don't worry so much. Even if that was to be something you did in your writing, that isn't an egregious error. That's just one that I would simply maybe make a note of, but definitely wouldn't penalize you about. So I understand it's confusing, but you didn't necessarily need the comma there. But I do like how you added the period in the right place. That is where we needed to show the break between those two ideas. So again, this is a run-on. What makes it a run-on is two or more complete ideas fused. So this entire statement here, this is one idea. So the issue of adapting to and developing a new eating schedule can be tough. One idea is being presented here. Then you have your next. Students need to know this. So it's a run-on in the sense that two or more complete ideas fused together. So the break between those two ideas is where you would place your punctuation. So you added your period here. That works perfect. You could also add a semicolon here. Here, let me not capitalize it. And that also works perfect. Did anybody add a comma and conjunction for this sentence?
I kind of did both.
Okay. What did you do? Tell me, what did we do?
Okay, so for Give me 1 second. The issues of adapting to, I put the comma in, developing a new eating habit can be difficult. And then I try to connect the 2 sentences and I put the comma in, students need to be aware.
Okay, so you did a comma and again. Yeah, now, and we'll talk more about that compound subject. That and I know is throwing you guys. When you see that and, you're thinking automatically it will need a punctuation. But in the proofreading of this statement, try to look at it as kind of the breakdown of the complete. Right, is the sentence complete and correct, right? And if you kind of take it through that breakdown of what is my subject, what's my verb here, and does it express a complete thought? Sometimes that may help to make it a little bit clearer, but we're still learning. So you don't necessarily need the comma there at and, but let's say you added your comma in conjunction here, since the goal is to correct the run-on error here, right? So what if we said, the issue of adapting to and developing a new eating schedule can be tough. We could say, and students need to know this. What about so? What do you guys think about so? So students need to know this? No, I don't like it. So I think and would be the only conjunction that would really work here, right? So whether you use a semicolon or period, let me do a period. Go back to Robert's initial suggestion. Yeah, so that works well. All right, let's wrap this up with this last statement. Eating well can be difficult in college, but it can be done. Oh, okay. What do you guys think about this sentence?
I said eating well can.
Go ahead, Jewel.
Eating well can be difficult in college, but it can be done with practice and dedication.
Okay, so you connected the fragment, the practice and dedication, to the independent clause that preceded it. So I'll say with. But now that we've been talking about conjunctions, I'm just going to, acknowledge the elephant in the room. I'm a bold butt, so you guys can see.
Yeah.
We have this conjunction here.
I put my comma.
It needed a comma.
Yeah.
Eating well can be difficult in college. That is a complete idea. That can stand on its own. So when we add but here and we present another independent clause, it can be done with practice and dedication, then a comma is needed here to separate those two complete ideas. And of course, to mark the introduction of your conjunction. So
I did that and also made it 2 sentences too.
Okay. So how do we make it 2 sentences? What do we do to make this 2 sentences?
I put the period. I did put the comment, but can be done. Then I put the period. If students dedicate and practice, they can adapt, eat, and change.
Oh, okay. So you kind of did like a summary sentence. You said, so if students adapt and, let's say it again for me, Jamisha.
So I put, well, after the period, I'm going to start that. If students dedicate and practice, they can adapt, eat, and change.
Okay, yeah. So you stylistically changed it. That's fine. As long as that last sentence, which was a fragment, has now been corrected to a complete sentence. You can add whatever information you want to add to fragments, right? Because it's lacking information. So if you added additional information that is expressed in a complete sentence, then you corrected that. So good. That sounded good to me. Did anybody do anything different with practice and dedication at the end? Anything different? All right. So a little bit of close reading goes into proofreading, especially when you are looking specifically for fragments and run-ons. And with you guys working on your revised paper, try not to overwhelm yourself with the proofreading process. Sometimes we get nervous and anxious in that I want everything to be perfect, but try to keep in mind, what have I taught? What have I learned? What has my instructor taught me? What will she be looking for in terms of this paper? You guys know I'm going to be looking at sentences, especially if I indicated in your first paper that, you had fragments or you had run-ons. I'm going to be looking to see that they are corrected. So try to proofread with that intention in mind. I'm proofreading to look for sentence errors and take each sentence through the test of, is this complete? Does this make sense? You know, is my punctuation appropriate? All of that. And I think that could help eliminate surface errors before they get to me. So where by the time I catch it, and that is a C, if you make those corrections and submit it, then what would have been a D or C paper now starts off as a B. And you can only go up from there. So proofreading, again, makes all the difference between what I call my A and B papers, my B and C papers, and of course, anything that falls below that. All right. So again, whether you guys wrote this out by hand, take a picture, shoot it to me. If you wrote it in a email or a Google Doc or Microsoft Word doc, save it, email it to me, put it in the subject line, proofreading exercise, just a way that's easy for me to identify what it is. All right. So here's what I am hoping that you guys walk away with. If you struggled with that assignment, if you felt like, oh, this was a little bit difficult, I missed some things, I wasn't really sure how to correct errors that I did identify, use that to inform you on what you need to study. So if you missed identifying some fragments, go back to that handout, reread your notes or the information there. Practice the 12 questions on the back. Practice revising or correcting them, but you definitely want to be prompted to study what you didn't know, okay? And that's a big point too. I thought about that this morning as I was preparing for class, in that I hope my students are aware that it's important that you guys come to the synchronous meeting. That's important, it is, but it's also equally important that you are reviewing the information we discuss outside of class, that you are really reading what's in the modules. That information is designed a lot of times to help with what we, will work on that week. So it's two-part component. It's being present, but it's also independent study, what you do on your own in order to review and improve in those skills. All right, let me see. I got a couple of, all right. Okay, you guys, let me get into the reading really quickly before I get us out of here. Homework was to read and annotate mother tongue. And I want to talk about this before we go. I also had questions associated with this. So let me drop for you guys. Now, you don't have to complete this now or in class, but it will be the basis of our discussion on Monday. So let me drop really quickly some what I call post-reading questions on this topic, on this essay actually, called Mother Tongue. So while I'm pulling this up, let me just kind of poll the room. What did you guys think about this text? And when I say what did you think, did we like it? Was it easy to read? Okay, I heard I can relate to it.
Here.
Good, I like that. What else? What do we think about this text? Amy Tan's Mother Tongue.
It reminded me of my grandmother. So she didn't have above a 6th grade education. So she always had me reading and writing for her when I was young. So it made me understand it.
Okay, I see that. Yeah, so you were making connections. I think somebody else stated too. Yes, ma'am.
When we read the article, do we supposed to write about it?
Well, the homework was for you guys to read it, annotate, and then write a summary. So we're going to talk about summary. But other than that, you guys weren't asked to do anything but read and summarize.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Okay, so all right, so I heard a little bit of feedback. Some of you guys, I heard somebody say I like it. I heard somebody said I can relate to it. Jamisha, you threw in the connection. I think that was Jamisha. You threw in the connection that it reminded you of your grandmother, right? We kind of connected with the text in that we may have found ourselves in similar situations at a point in time. But I really like this text, so I'm gonna try to look. I'm gonna try to hold back my enthusiasm only because it's so rich with the issues surrounding language, right? So keep in mind where this essay fits into our unit on language and identity. So this whole idea of language and how the author attempts to explain or break down her use of language. So it's an essay in the sense that, and we're going to talk about this, it's an essay in the sense that there's a clear introduction. She works to introduce this topic or this idea to the audience. She then transitions from this idea about, language, her love of language, how she uses and appreciates language, into her main idea, what she plans to discuss in this text. And what you guys were asked to do in writing your summary, it will target specifically what is the author's main idea. And it will even go a little further into what were some key points made in the text. Now, I know, oh, yes, Dwayne, I'm sorry. I see your hand, Dwayne. You had a question?
Yeah. I used the template that you had on.
Oh, good.
So was that okay? Because I just filled it out and sent it to you.
Right. So you, right. And I'm actually going to show the class. Okay. So Dwayne brings up something really important and useful, you guys. Under week 4 module, I have posted a summary worksheet. So the goal of that worksheet is to help you guys with formulating or building your own summary. So let me show you guys this really quickly. And I know what you're saying too, Dwayne. You're saying that you use that template to kind of build. So you filled in the sections. That's okay for this, but ordinarily you would want to use it to get you started and then translate that from the template into a paragraph format. So
I understand. I thought you were just using that just to show us how to put it in chronological order.
Yeah, and I know I personally think it's helpful. Did you find that helpful?
I'm used to just free doing, just doing it, but I mean, it's the same thing. Actually, just broken in separate parts.
Right. Okay, so good. I'm glad you saw that. So, all right, let me show you guys first. I don't want to talk about something that you don't know what I'm talking about. So let me show you really quickly this template that is posted on our Brightspace page under week 4 module, because my goal with this was to set up a resource. So I do know we have our own ways of writing summary, in that, I'm kind of like you as well, Dwayne. I'll free write it, but I do attempt to outline it or organize it first. So let me show you guys this. The homework assignment asked you guys to summarize the main points of the essay Mother Tongue by Amy Tan. So that was the simple instructions. Let me share my screen. Well, actually, let me download it first. I kind of don't like it. I don't really like how it shows up in this. Okay, this is okay. All right, let me share with you. Again, if you haven't checked out the modules, make sure you are going in and reading, reviewing everything under each weekly module. A lot of times what we will do the week moving forward will be built on that knowledge or that information that was shared in those modules. So if you miss the modules, if you don't read them, there are holes in your learning. There's holes in certain concepts or understanding in the class. So really make sure you guys don't.
I was wondering what this is for.
Yeah, so this is simply a resource. So it is designed to operate as a template. So in the past, I have had students who struggled with the organizing their ideas in a summary. So you guys know what we talked about yesterday. When you summarize, it follows guidelines. This class is laying out specific guidelines that I want to make sure we don't miss. The first is, as you guys can see from this handout, you want to always include author, title, information. That should start as your opening sentence. In the essay, Mother Tongue by Amy Tan, she discusses, or she presents, right? So this planning worksheet, it attempts to help you guys lay it out in chronological order so that when you take this information and produce a paragraph, you have all of your points readily available and spelled out for you. So again, based on the guidelines, I'll pull those up in a minute. Every essay includes this information: title, author, and that opening sentence summarizes that main idea. So when you guys write your summary, the goal should be in that first sentence to name your title, name the author, and name their main point. And as you guys will see, just some resources with this handout. Here is a list of strong verbs. So we talked about yesterday, when you start a summary, you don't want to say the essay talks about, or the author talks about, or says. We want to stay away from what I call those trite verbs. And what I mean by trite is they've been used and used over again, and they turn into a handle for students. So I'll see in a summary over and over again, the author says, the author says, the author said, or I'll see the author talks about, they talk about, they state. So we want to stay away from those handles, right? We tend to gain a dependence on them, and we want to reach out to accurately express the author's purpose, right? So whether you say in the article Mother Tongue by Amy Tan, she explains. You can say in the article Mother Tongue by Amy Tan, she explores, or she presents, she questions, she investigates. So I give you guys a little help with those strong verbs in introducing the author's main idea. And if you see my little notes at the bottom, it says never say the author says, the author talks about, or the author writes. If we can help that, that's, that too helps with the transition into college level, writing. All right, so good. So you're telling me, Dwayne, you use this, so your summary is really kind of spelled out with this template. So I would go here to kind of see, and I think that's good practice. But the goal,
yeah. I mean, I answered, I think, each question, at least three. I mean, not questions, but I put like 3 sentences in each one.
Okay, all right, that's good. Again, the main goal with the summary is to be brief, so I'll always ask you guys for at least a paragraph, because with a summary, you shouldn't be rehashing the entire text. So a summary shouldn't be a page long, or it shouldn't be a page and a half long. The word summary is pretty much just highlights. You're kind of really highlighting the key points, those main ideas presented. So the worksheet that you guys will find under week 4 module, especially if you struggled to write your summary, I think this could be helpful in outlining or helping you to map out your summary. Did you name the author? Did you name the written work? Did you tell what kind of writing it is? And that means in the article, in the book, in the essay. So all of that is preferred. And then they give examples. So you'll see in his book, At Home, Bill Bryson explains. So we see that strong verb before we see the single sentence summary of the author's main idea. So did we struggle with writing a summary? Did anybody find this to be a difficult task? I struggle with writing summaries, so I'll throw myself out there.
Just a little bit, but the reason that it was hard for me was because I was trying to fit in, like, not to have fragment sentences and stuff like that. That's why it was hard for me.
Yeah. So yeah, you but keep in mind, when you're writing, write first and then later go back and look for correctness. But I see what you're saying. But when you do it double duty, you know what I mean? When I'm writing and I'm trying to correct it, yeah, it can complicate the process. But okay, so good. And I saw in the chat box, I heard back from Robert that no, it wasn't too difficult. Good. But if you guys did struggle, if you kind of just didn't share, come here to the resource, this summary worksheet to help. It's like about 4 or 5 pages of really piece by piece breaking down the parts of a summary. And if you weren't here yesterday, let me again, reference the importance of this for the final CRT, even for our midterm next week. We'll talk about that. You guys will be asked not only to read an article and answer questions, you're asked to summarize the article. So it's always a part of the test taking process that the way that they assess comprehension is they can tell you understood the text by how you summarize it. If you can identify the main idea, that lets your teacher or assessor know, okay, I can tell they got what they needed to get out of their reading. If you can pinpoint key points, that proves or shows that you were able to kind of really comprehend and manage the information you read. So, okay, this was just an assignment. So this was just a homework assignment along with the reading. So this wasn't a journal. All right, so again, they also give you transition words to help as you move from sentence to sentence. So really good, useful handout. If you guys haven't looked at this yet, definitely utilize it. Something else I want to show. Let me stop the share here and just to revisit something else too we talked about yesterday. I'm doing this. We talked about this. We use this model as well in class. And, not to just keep saying this, but I had trouble posting things to Brightspace yesterday. So I know that you guys were looking for this as a sample. Again, I'll attempt to get this on, but your summary should look something like this. It should be a single paragraph that, according to the guidelines we discussed in class, lays out the author's main idea. Okay. So if you guys haven't submitted that yet, make sure that you submit that today. I don't want to go too deep into the main idea because if those of you who haven't written it yet, I don't want to give you a freebie, but I do want to talk about how we read this topic of mother tongue. So we talked about our reading strategies of looking at your title, right? And I think I asked you guys yesterday, like, what do you think mother tongue would mean? Like, what do you think that the particular essay would discuss? And you guys see as you read it, there's a play on mother tongue. She talks about her use of language, but she specifically addresses the unique role language has played in how she communicates with her family, her mother, and kind of what that means to her as a writer. So that title was important in terms of identifying ideas expressed in the text. But let me ask this: did you guys easily find the main idea, or did we struggle with identifying the main idea?
Well, using that new annotations procedure, making little notes on the side, it wasn't too hard. And I just used those notes on the side to make the summary paragraph.
Robert, I'm so glad you said that. It has been my mantra for as long as I've been teaching reading and writing, that I've been telling, I attempt to teach my students that when you annotate appropriately, when you make those notes, when you read, when you are kind of translating, I know the author said this, but this is what I understand it to mean. When you do that, you are already summarizing your understanding of the text. And it makes it easier for you to then translate that understanding in a summary when you have those notes right in front of you. So I'm overjoyed that you said that, Robert, because the step of annotating is not busy work. That isn't just me telling you guys to do something,
Yeah, I don't
to kind of
do
make
that.
you do something. It's really intentional in that the information you gather from annotation, it helps in summary, It helps if you have to answer any post-reading questions. You can just kind of look at your notes instead of having to go through a dry reread. It helps you when you write your essays, where I may ask you, do you agree or disagree with the author's main idea? You can look at your annotations and you can get an idea of how you interacted with that text. If you didn't like or didn't agree with what most of was said, you would make note of that. So the annotations are so valuable, especially when done right, in helping you to knock out all of those elements that you guys will be encountering in the CRT. So you guys will be asked to answer comprehension questions, annotate, make notes, jot down the vocabulary. You may be asked about a vocabulary word. So you want to be really thorough, intentional, attempt not to skirt the process of annotation, because it helps to eliminate more work down the line. If every time you answer a question about that text, you have to reread it, imagine the amount of time that would take. If every time you have to, summarize or talk about your understanding of a text and you have to reread it to do that, it just adds extra burden to the process. So do not sleep on annotation. I assign it. I don't necessarily enforce it so much, but I do like that, what you said, Robert, in terms of your annotations helped you. It helped you to summarize. If you struggle to summarize, or even if you struggle to annotate, sometimes I take myself paragraph by paragraph, and I'll just write in the margins a brief sentence summarizing what that paragraph meant. Each paragraph, I'll go read that paragraph. In the margin, I'll write, okay, so this is what that meant. And then when I have to build a summary, I just go right to my margin notes. I can summarize sentence per sentence what the main points of that particular text was. So we'll get more practice on that, but I'm glad you did that promotion for me. So other than that, did anybody struggle with writing a summary for this text?
No, but can I speak to you after class just to go
Sure.
over?
Yeah. So we'll go over it. So here's what I'll do. You guys send me your summaries. I will, using the guidelines we've discussed in class, I'll score it and give you guys feedback. The purpose of the feedback is only for you guys to use that to study in preparation for our midterm, where again, you guys will be asked to read an article and summarize it, okay? So make sure you guys get that into me if you want feedback. But one of the outcomes for this course is students should be able to summarize or put into writing, paraphrase main or key ideas of text that they read. So we'll get more practice with that. Question I wanted to ask, through your annotations, do you guys have the reading in front of you? Do we have the reading in front of you? Should I pull it up on the screen?
I can pull it up on my screen.
Okay.
Or you can.
Yeah, I'll pull it up on mine too, just in case. But all right, the text. And you guys didn't struggle to find the text at all. Oh, I have it here. Okay, awesome. Chat. Okay. All right, Dwayne. Now, I see where you stated that you sent the revised essay. Make sure you are submitting that revised essay in Brightspace under the assignment, okay? But I'll shoot you a sidebar on that. I'll shoot you a sidebar on that. Okay. Let me show you guys this. So again, without me complaining too much, one thing that is missed in this remote learning and us being electronically, attempting to do this electronically, when I annotate, I normally like to share with students, just my annotation to give you guys an idea, but I want you to kind of look at the breakdown of this text. Do you guys see the handout with Amy Tan? Let me see if I can make this a bit bigger. Okay, what I like about this text is, we know it's an essay, okay? So since we're writing essays, you know, I want to see if you guys are familiar with the elements of this. Why do you guys think that Amy Tan opened up this text by talking about, you know, that she's not a specialist? What did she say specifically? I think she said, I don't consider myself to be a scholar of English or literature. Why do you think she gives us that disclaimer before she gets started on this essay? But I'm sorry, say it again. Why do you guys think she started off this way? Keep in mind, this is her intro, right? So why did she choose to begin by discussing that she's not a scholar of English or literature?
I mean, I guess she was going saying some unconventional things, I guess. You know, I don't know.
Right, but that's a good guess, Robert. She is attempting to establish out the gate before anyone can judge her credibility. Remember, we talked about this need to kind of judge or the problem that poses when your credibility is questioned or jeopardized, right? It kind of renders your writing, well, if you can be painted as a source that's not credible, it kind of renders your opinion or your ideas as null and void. So she's attempting out of the gate to establish a level of credibility in her discussion on English language. One thing you guys need to know, which I'm sure you guys may know, the English language is, what can I say? It is full of what I call grammar snobs, English snob, people who are ready to police your use of it. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
It's always somebody waiting to throw a flag or to ticket you on your use of language, right? So she shows an awareness of that. There's an awareness. Before she gets into her discussion on language, she was like, let me just clear it up for, you know, in case there's a peanut gallery or somebody who may have some ideas about her credibility. She said, I am not a scholar of English or literature. I cannot give you much more than personal opinions on the English language and its variations in this country or others. So she is laying out a disclaimer almost, in that I'm not claiming to be a professional or expert. I'm simply giving you my opinion on the topic. So again, that we know is the purpose of an essay. It's driven by the author's opinion on the topic. So she establishes that clear. That is done for her audience. So she's clearly writing with audience awareness. If you guys were here yesterday, you already know about our brief discussion on audience awareness and its importance in writing as being writers, that we have this awareness of who we're writing for, purpose of that assignment, right? So she goes on to say, you know, I'm a writer and someone who's always loved language. Could you guys point to a particular sentence or statement that you feel identifies her main idea? Like if you guys are looking at your annotations, what did you highlight or underline as the main idea? Let's go there really quickly. Well, if you guys wrote the summary, then you should, you have an idea of what the main idea is. So if you can't pick out a sentence or a statement, what do you guys summarize that main idea to be?
I put the mother tongue is about how English is used to communicate, or how like she, depending on different audiences,
Okay, who's that, Jamisha?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, all right. I won't. I'll put a pin in that. What else did you guys want to add to that?
Hold on, let me get my paper.
Okay.
All right. The main idea I put, she looks back on as being a writer and using all the tools of her trade, which are all forms of English.
Okay. All right, so that's similar to what you said too, Jamisha, kind of like the different uses of English, right? Good. What you identified for me, Robert, was this. Hold on, let me use my annotation so you guys can see where I'm on screen. You did kind of pick out a statement, a sentence, if you will, that you felt covered her main idea. Language is a tool of my trade, and I use them all the Englishes I grew up with. Since we know how a essay works, right? Our main idea is our thesis. So that would mean that every other body paragraph, all of the examples and supporting details, they are working to show, explain, detail, or prove this statement. So she wants to talk about all of the Englishes she grew up with. So if we test this, let's kind of give it the main idea test. Do we agree that all of the examples, all of the body paragraphs, they all worked to support and develop her uses of different Englishes?
Yes. She even had a paragraph in there, I think it was the third one, that actually sounded like she was speaking in the in the type of English from home.
Right. Okay, good. I like that. Okay, yeah. So she called it
quite funny.
yeah, she refers to it, I think, as broken English, but we'll talk about that too. But here's what I like about your response. If you're ever in question about your main idea, if you guys are ever unsure that you are identifying or communicating the correct idea, take it to the test. Does her paragraph or does her essays seek to support and develop this idea? And you guys said, yes, I agree. This entire essay is about how she breaks down her use of different Englishes. So she goes into detail, she goes into explanation by giving personal experience about her use of different Englishes. So she talked about a familial English, one she uses with her family. So she said whether that's her husband or her mother, right? And I'm going to go to that paragraph you were talking about just a moment ago. I see. So this one, I believe. So that's here. Just circling this paragraph. All right. So where she says, okay, just last week I was walking down the street with my mother and I again found myself conscious of the English I was using. Do you guys see how she keeps going back to that language too? English. Her topic, her main idea is different Englishes that she used, right? Her use of these different Englishes. So she keeps pointing back to that topic. It shows up again and again. So she says, the English I was using with her, the English I do use with her. We were talking about the price of new and used furniture, and I heard myself saying this, not waste money that way. She goes on to say, my husband was with us as well, and he didn't notice any switch in my English. And then I realized why. It's because over the 20 years we've been together, I've often used that same kind of English with him. And sometimes he even uses it with me. It has become our language of intimacy, a different sort of English that relates to family talk, the language I grew up with. So again, drawing on her main idea, she gives a specific example. She talks differently. She uses a different form of English when she talks to her family members, those who she is uniquely intimate with, right? So she calls that family talk. Sometimes I refer to it as familial English, but we see where she identified this as a type of English that she used. We saw also, and I'm just going to quickly circle this paragraph, she talked about the language she uses in her profession. She is a writer. She writes literature. So she uses discipline specific language. So, you know what I mean by that? When you are a nurse, there's certain vocabulary and language that is used in the, you know, medical field. They call it medical terminology. When you are a writer or an English instructor, there's certain language or terminology that you use to operate in those spaces. So she talked about past perfect tenses, conditional phrases, grammatical phrases. You guys have heard me talk about very similar things, right? So she shifts when she talks to her group at work or in book clubs. She uses that professional English. This is a type. She also identifies the family English that she uses, right? And then the rest of her body paragraph goes into instances when it's okay to shift, right? When she is called to use those various forms of English. And what are some examples? And I see the time. Let me not draw this out. Let me point specifically to, there was a certain clause I wanted to talk about. Okay. All right, this one right here. In introducing the different types of languages or Englishes that she uses, in our discussion about good versus bad English, I want you guys to kind of make a connection here in that whether she is speaking in her class setting, professional setting at a book club, or to her family, there is no wrong way that she's using English. It all depends on the audience that she's addressing. Do you guys see that? You know, see that exemplified here? So just yesterday, where we were talking about good versus bad English does not exist. It's appropriate and inappropriate. And once you know the purpose and the audience that you're addressing, you can navigate between those spaces. This is a essay detailing a story about identifying when it's appropriate to use her various forms of English, her being aware of her audience when doing so. The story opens up with her being aware that her mother was not understanding the English that she was using in her speech, right? It was a different audience. It didn't require her to use that intimate or familiar language, what we often refer to as informal, right? And then she talked too about when she uses that broken English with her mother. And I'm feeling a way in even calling it broken. I don't even like to call it broken English. It's just a different form of English that she uses in talking to her mother. Now, you guys do see that Amy Tan is Asian. She's Asian American. So the language barrier with her mother, you know, migrating here is that her mother speaks in leaving particular words out of her. When she translates to English, there are words missing, right? So where we took a look at that example, what did she say? Not waste money that way, right? So it's kind of leaving out, do not waste money that way, right? And I see this a lot of time in writing, especially my students who English as a second language, especially in cases where that first language may be Spanish, because as a Spanish student who took Spanish, look, I will not claim to speak Spanish very well at all, but I did take the class, or look, I want to say 2 years of Spanish in high school and college, and I can tell by the way they break down verbs. I'm able to identify grammar errors in my students because I see what they're doing. I know what you're doing when you put the adjective after the noun. I know why you do that, because in that language, in the language of Spanish, that is how the verbs are conjugated, right? That's how it's kind of broke down. So it does take some knowledge in some cases, but with that knowledge, I wouldn't consider that language broken. Like, I wouldn't consider it incorrect. I would just consider, I see the error the student made in translating that. Like, I understand and see that. But she pointed out here lots of situations where people used her mother's broken form of English to discriminate against her. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
All of the various ways that I think we sometimes you know, those of us who may speak English, we have a privilege. We take for granted how difficult it may be in just picking up the phone to conduct bank business, or picking up the phone to perhaps talk to your child's teacher, right? Amy Tan is aware of the different Englishes because she sees how it impacts her mother's or her family's life. So we saw the discrimination at work, where the bank, I think when the mother would call about her money in a bank, or it was with her Wall Street. What was it about? Her stocks, her money that she had in the market?
Yeah, she was trying to cash out and it took them forever to send her check.
Yes, they almost wanted to disregard her. So a lot of times when we see the language barriers, or what I call language discrimination, right? Maybe you don't want to listen a little bit harder. Maybe you don't want to kind of take the time and where a particular word may be left out, you know, kind of work to understand as well. And it immediately goes to judgment. Well, what that person has to say must not be important. Since they can't talk the language, then I don't really need to, you know, be bothered or give them that necessary time. And whether we've done that, you know, on purpose or inadvertently, hopefully I'm hoping that our discussion of it and our reading of, you know, certain texts will make us aware of that language discrimination and what it how it impacts the person. So as a result of these language breakdowns, Amy Tan was used a lot of times as a child. She was used to make the doctor's appointments for the family because of her use of English, her command of the English language. Her mother would use her to handle her problems, any problem that would arise due to the language barrier. It then became the responsibility of this child to fix that. So the whole family is affected by those discriminations or those types of instances. So we saw that here. All right, with us getting out of here, let me go ahead and wrap this up. I told you guys I like this essay, so I kind of go a little bit in on it, but I'm going to drop some post questions. So these are some questions for you guys to consider. As far as answering them, you guys can answer them to have your responses ready. But Monday when we come back together, we're picking up this discussion on mother tongue. So let me give you really quickly this. Let me stop share.
Oh, so we don't have to turn in our paragraph yet?
Yeah, now your summaries, I do want your summaries. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so
yeah.
do we turn now or Monday?
No, you turn the summary. I want the summaries now. But as far as the questions that I'm about to send you guys, I'm saying these particular questions you don't have to worry about completing now or even sending to me now, just as long as you have thought about them. So when we have a discussion, I want to hear from more of us. I want to kind of eliminate the crickets that I sometimes get when we ask about the reading. So what I'm posting here is a form similar to what we completed yesterday, where you guys are considering, maybe to even jotting down your ideas, but specific questions. Let me show you guys what it looks like. So I dropped the link. I'll also drop the link on Brightspace, so in case you don't get it here, you'll have it there. But today in class, I wanted us to have time to answer these post-reading questions and then kind of really go through a thorough discussion. We are towards the end of class, even though I promised to get out early. Look, I'll shut up. I'm gonna quit saying that. Is what I'm gonna stop doing. And so because we have no real time left, I'm dropping this for you guys to take a look at, because Monday I want discourse. I want us to talk openly, more than just my usual 2 or 3 people who I can depend on hearing from every time. I want to really hear from the majority of the class, especially those who in some cases may be silenced. I don't know if maybe the mic may not work or whatever the case may be. We are going to have time on Monday to really go into some of these questions. So the first question we did together, right? Why do you think Amy Tan opened up by explaining that she's not this language expert? But I want you guys to look at these other questions and come prepared to answer them. According to Tan, how does the power of language manifest itself? Did anybody have to look the word manifest up as you were reading or annotating the text?
No.
I love manifest. If you have to look it up, don't pass over this word if you're unfamiliar with it or if it's unknown. Definitely look it up, add it to your vocabulary. What does she mean by different Englishes? We've kind of toyed with this, but make sure you have a clear understanding. Why does Amy Tan speak different Englishes to her mother and her husband? We talked about that. And here's one that I want you to consider. Do you think that the development of our language skills is influenced more by our family or is it influenced more by our peers? Okay, so we'll pick our discussion up on Monday from this space. Okay, so please come prepared. Hopefully you've read, maybe you've jotted in your annotations, your responses, and we can kind of get through this quickly before moving on. All right, so I'll drop that. I'll share it again. Homework is what I stated at the beginning. Revisions is priority, top of list. When you guys submit those, you submit on Brightspace. So underneath that assignment, revised essay 1 is where you'll drop those papers. And if you guys don't know yet, let me kind of wire you up. The reason I require papers to go through Brightspace is they go through a Turnitin scan, right? Are you guys familiar with Turnitin?
Nope.
Okay, I scan papers for originality. I scan papers to make sure students are not plagiarizing. So it goes through Brightspace so that it can go through the process of being scanned. So I will not read a paper that has not gone through the scanned process. So don't email it to me. Don't send it in the Dropbox. If you want it read with and graded, then drop it in the Brightspace under assessments, assignments in its appropriate, in its appropriate spot. So for your revised essay, there is an assignment that I set up called revised essay number 1. That's where you will drop your revised papers.
Okay. So, but it's like for the summaries to go through your email, all right?
Yeah, summary is fine. Now summary and essay is two completely different things. And with that summary, and again, I'm switching lanes really quickly. With the summary, which is what was for homework, what you guys completed, you can take a picture of it. Robert sent me his already. He took a picture of his paragraph. I'm able to read it clearly and see it. So if you are going to take a picture, be very clear with that picture. If you typed it up in an email or Google Docs, send it as a email attachment. That's perfectly okay. All right, so revised essay number 1 is a part of homework. Also, discussion board. We have a discussion board forum that I posted. So make sure you guys check that out. It is also under assessments, under discussion. So I'll leave all of the information for you guys to find that. But that assignment is due Tuesday of next week. And you guys know I'll send reminders on that. But just kind of prioritize what you are working on this weekend. Revised paper, any reading that you guys haven't completed, work that in as well. And
which one did you say due Tuesday? I'm sorry.
The discussion board.
Discussion board.
And that is an opportunity for you guys to reflect on the writing process. What did you learn? What challenges did you face? How helpful did you find the process, etc. So follow those instructions to complete that assignment.
Yes.
And then when we pick up on Monday, you guys, we are still under this theme of language and identity. Oh, one last announcement before you guys go. Midterm. We talked about this yesterday, but in case anybody wasn't here or you missed that discussion, I stated yesterday that you will receive the text or the article that the midterm CRT will be based on Wednesday. I am revising that. You guys will receive the essay that you are using to complete the midterm. You're going to receive that on Monday. So Monday when you guys come in, we're going to go over again the expectation of the CRT and introduce the article. on Wednesday is when you guys will be completing your midterm, your practice CRT. Okay, so July 1st, a week from today, plan to take your midterm exam. Now, we'll talk more on Monday about what that will look like. I can give you a heads up now. It's going to be a quiz on Brightspace that you guys on your own time, you will have your own time in getting that done and submitting it to me, okay? So we'll talk more about that Monday, but midterm next week. If you're going to miss any days, I would not miss Wednesday, July 1st, okay? Jot that information down. I'll reiterate it.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you guys do your best to enjoy your weekend. Look, I see the city is slowly opening back up. But you know, just kind of keep in mind, you know, do what you have to do to keep yourself and your family safe, but definitely try to have fun. Look, if you're anything like me, I need it.
Me too.
All right. Work hard, play hard. All right, you guys. If there are no questions, I think somebody was staying after. Who was staying after?
It was me. I was trying to get you to look at my summary just to see if I got the right idea about it.
Okay, so I'll take a look at the summary. If you guys have any questions, email me. Oh, you know what? I'll post it. Don't worry. Nothing to add. But again, if you guys have any questions, if you need an extra set on your eyes on your paper, tutor, come see me if you need help. Other than that, enjoy your weekend. See you all on Monday.
Okay, bye.
All right, see you, Yamna.
Bye,
right,
Miss Cole.
Okay, see you, Tamisia. Let me stop my recording.